Folks can't quit talking about Auburn's wide receivers because we've never seen something like this before.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're dapping it up today with Montgomery radio legend, the Darrell Dapprich, who is running back 2 behind Jarquez Hunter. What a fascinating and incredible situation Auburn finds themselves in there. The quarterback pecking order, it's kind of interesting. I think it's a little bit of a shock. But Darrell, Auburn's wide receivers stole the show. The addition of KeAndre Lambert-Smith, Cam Coleman taking that step from spring over the course of summer, now to fall camp, and then Perry Thompson just passing the initial eye test in the 45-minute viewing window that they gave to media. But Darrell, the folks that see the pictures that the media posts or the videos, or the folks that were fortunate enough to be there yesterday, they can't quit talking about Auburn's wide receivers because they've never seen anything like it before here on the Plains.
You have to start somewhere, baby steps. So when people kind of downplay or say, look, you're talking about eyeball test, that doesn't mean anything until games start. I get that. I totally understand that. Except that you and I, for 2 years during different practice windows, saw nothing like this. There wasn't even a step one. There wasn't even a starting point, right? Where you looked at a guy and said, physically, that could be an NFL receiver. Or physically, that's what it takes to play in the SEC. I'm being very honest. We didn't see that the last 2 years. So I get that it has to translate onto the field, but my God, we didn't even have a starting point before. There wasn't even an eyeball test to begin with.
2 years ago, we were watching just kind of a skeleton passing drill, and I had someone walk up to me and said, "So how are you going to talk about this on your show?" I don't know. I don't
remember
know.
Hey, they put those bullseyes in the end zone, and it was just, I'm not going to mention, it was bad. It was like sailing into the stands, missing the ball.
That was open to the public too.
It was. I walked out of there going, wow. I mean, so I get the eyeball thing, but if you are looking to improve, where do you start first? Physicality, making it like an SEC ready body, and then obviously big physical receivers that translate into the NFL like Hugh Freeze has had. You have to start there. And I think Auburn has that starting point.
Yeah. During some of the drills, I mean, they line up at different spots. We're kind of limited to the one side of the field that we're able to stand on, but KLS is standing, just a few feet away. He's the outside receiver on our sideline. And it's just like, he's not the most physically imposing, but the way he gets off of the line and his stance and his burst and, the way he approaches his route, it's like that looks different. And then next up is Perry Thompson getting his first reps in an official organized, practice. And it's just like, that looks different. I mean, how we talked about like when we saw Derek Brown or Marlon Davidson. Marlon Davidson, the former defensive end who got drafted a few years ago, the first time his class was practicing, all the freshmen were on the sideline except for him because it's just like, you're different. You're already ready for the SEC. There's just these players where it's like, yeah, you're a freshman, but you look the part. You're already ready because you're special. Auburn has 2 of those in the wide receiver room right now. And it's like, I don't know if people finally clicked with it or what it was. For me, I didn't fully believe the Perry Thompson stuff, and boy, was I wrong, because that dude's he is ready. He is ready to rock and roll, Darrell.
I think the KLS points that you were looking at, that you were highlighting, the word that comes to mind for me is polished. The way he gets off the break, gets out of the break, gets off the line of scrimmage, the way he runs his routes. He's this is a guy that's played in the Big Ten for a couple years. Yeah. And he's obviously been well coached. Give credit to the Penn State staff. And now you can refine those tools into an SEC environment. But more importantly, whose eyeballs are going to be watching the way KLS runs routes and how polished he is and how he breaks off the line of scrimmage? You would hope that Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman are looking at that and going, I'm going to learn from this. And it's by osmosis, it soaks in. So I think that that's very, very important. And I think that, he may not be as physically imposing as the other two, but he's going to do things the right way and very polished because of his experience in playing big time college football.
So I didn't tell you that I was going to ask you this question ahead of time because it just kind of came to me. So we always talk about Peyton Thorne. In fact, we asked Peyton Thorne this at media days where he's like, there were 3 guys that I threw to at Michigan State that went on to the NFL. We're not talking about the offensive line. We're not talking about future NFL offensive linemen with Connor Lew, Percy Lewis, Xavion Miller. We're not talking about those guys. When you look at skill players in this offense around Peyton Thorne, how many future NFL players are on this roster right now?
Can I include running backs?
100%. Yes. Let's go through the list. 6, that sounds right.
Seven.
So I think all 3 running backs are. Did you count all 3 running backs? Yep.
I did.
Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb. More on them later in the show. Cam Coleman.
Yep.
KLS gets drafted next year.
Yep.
Perry gets drafted.
Yep.
Rivaldo gets drafted.
There's my 7th right there.
When have we ever said that? Think about this.
Okay, so seriously, you have to go back to the Tommy Tuberville and Pat Dye era teams where you had like skill position guys. Because let's be honest, Pat Dye used to have 3 running backs that would get drafted every year. Okay, he had that backfield. And then he'd have receivers that were good, guys like Lawyer Tillman and Alexander Wright. And then you would have a tight end. He was good at putting tight ends in the league. So
but Darrell, you know what those Pat Dye teams did? They won football games.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's the correlation that I was going to make. And let's just say this, I'm really going off par here, but this is important to understand that in those eras, Zach, if there would have been a 12-team playoff, holy crap. He would have been Auburn would have been almost every year. So how do you get back to being a constant, being a staple that competes for the 12-team college football playoff every year? Get guys drafted into the league, especially at the skill positions. Because Auburn has had offensive linemen and defensive linemen and linebackers, and we know defensive backs, for the love of God, get drafted
and running
in the
backs.
NFL.
Sure, right.
But what is that translated into in the way of, they've played for 2 titles in a decade, which is very rare, as you Freeze pointed out. But I think you've nailed it. I think you've cracked the code. You have found the Ark of the Covenant, is that if you get guys like that off a roster that from the skill position and you put them in the league, you have a chance to compete for championships. It's not a very hard formula.
No, and they've got it. They've got it. So there are so many folks and Auburn fans, and I'm not telling you what to think, but you do come here to know what Darrell and I think about what's happening. And it's okay to be excited because we're excited about what Auburn is doing at the wide receiver position because it's so different. It's so different than anything we've ever seen here before. And we didn't even get to other, like Camden Brown in this new role where you're not asking him to be a number 1 or a number 2 wide receiver, I think is an exceptional spot.
He's going to have a sneaky good year. I just have when I say good year, I mean an over expectation of, you look up and he's caught 4 or 5 touchdown passes and he's, got some games where he's really contributed. I just have a feeling he's going to sneak up on some people and have a sneaky good year. And I think the Perry Thompson, go ahead.
Well, 3 touchdowns, 300 yards.
Right. As a receiver, like the 4th or 5th receiver in that list. I think the one thing that I'm starting to come around on, and I obviously want to see more and scrimmages and that kind of thing. The one question going into fall practice for me, more than anything else from the fall practice, it was from the receiver position, is Perry Thompson ready? He didn't get to participate in spring. Is he ready to get into the 2 deep? And from everything, I'm not just talking about you as a source, which I trust. I saw your scoops. I saw your notes. I saw video. There is a common thread of people can't stop talking about Perry Thompson. And so If he's ready to contribute in the 2 deep and answers that question, look out. Look out.
It looks different. It looks different. Why? Because it is different. And it's okay to be excited about it.
Absolutely.
So the quarterback pecking order, I'm a little shocked. And Darrell, so are you.
Mhm.
I'm surprised Holden's still number 2. Let's bring that up next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what keeps your ride or die alive. It's also what wins championships. Much like Q Freeze goes out and he was missing parts for his roster. You may be missing that key part, that key recruit for your vehicle. And Darrell, where do you go to do it?
eBay Motors.
That's right.
I mean, it's everything we do in this day and age is a research tool. And you look for things. And eBay Motors, you put in year, make, model, part. You don't need. I checked this a couple of days ago just in case you asked me this question. You don't even need a part number. You can give a part description.
I love that.
Because a part number sometimes files off, wears off. If it's a piece of crap part that's just dead, you're not going to get a part number off of it. Get a part description. Then it shows different obvious choices. It's great.
When you order the part, what does eBay Motors do?
They ship it to you immediately. They ship that to you.
Oh, keep your ride or die alive.
They don't mock you. They don't look at you like some of these
They ship it.
They ship it.
Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. So the pecking order for the first practice of fall camp, which we need to add that caveat as much and as often as we can. It's the first practice of fall camp. Wasn't in the entire practice. So it was the 45-minute chunk that we got to see. But the pecking order was the same as it was throughout the spring. Peyton Thorne, Holden Geriner, Hank Brown, Walker White. And over the course of spring, you and I think several others expected that to shift and Hank Brown to get moved up, largely because of what we saw in the bowl game. And we saw the same. We saw the same thing for the first practice. One, does this surprise you? Because it does surprise me. And 2, do we see this pecking order change at all over the course of fall camp?
2 great questions. First, I want to start with accentuating the positive. I give a kid like Holden Geriner all kind of credit where everybody thought he was transferring out, including me. We thought that's why I thought by default, first of all, Hank Brown was going to be number 2 because I thought Geriner wasn't going to be here when the fall started. He wrote it out. He stuck it out. This kid must obviously love Auburn. So I give him a ton of credit that he did that. And I'm not here to knock the kid. I'm just saying true facts, football, focusing on football performance solely. There is a litmus test. There's proof of concept on both players, all be very limited. There's analytics. There's things you've seen with your own eyeballs in live game action.
Yeah.
Just that alone, Zach, has me putting Hank Brown slotted second over Holden Geriner because of what Brown did in the bowl game and in his limited time. I mean, you have to see how people read and react when the bullets are flying. So that's why I am surprised. And do I think it's going to stay this way? No. I think when we kick it off against Alabama A&M, Hank Brown's your backup.
So I posted a video of the quarterbacks doing a drill. I put it on my Instagram yesterday at Zac Blackerby on Instagram if you want to check it out. But a lot of the comments, I saw several folks that commented, Holden's release is so smooth. And his ability to throw the football has never been in question. Pure passer. If you're having an accuracy contest or a touch contest, and you're trying to hit a target, Holden's probably the best of all 4 of them. But you nailed it. Like when he was put in games, he was put into awful situations, right? Like the pieces around him and all that. But Hank wasn't put in a good situation either.
Exactly. Hank Brown wasn't put in an ideal situation, and that's the difference. And you're right. Holden can spin it. I remember us doing a show after the Western Kentucky game and me watching Geriner and Robbie Ashford throw in pregame warmups. And I told you after the game, because that was one I did at your house with you, I said, that kid's got NFL arm talent, the way he spins it and the ball comes out of his hand. All that's great. But when the lights come on, if you can't translate that, and I'm not saying he can't, I'm just saying so far to this point, Hank Brown's ahead of him. And remember, I fully expect at least 3 quarterbacks to play against Alabama A&M. So we're going to get our answer really quick on who they trot out there in the third quarter in game 1 against Alabama A&M. So we'll see. But my prediction is that Hank Brown will eventually ascend into the number 2 spot.
And I just think when it comes to reps and you talk about the future of this program, like I think it benefits you more to give Hank or Walker more overall reps and snaps in practice and in a game, talking about the Alabama A&M game, than it does for Holden, just from an eligibility remaining standpoint, because it is close. Like if it is Holden Geriner, it's barely Holden Geriner. And so from a program standpoint, let the guys who are going to be here longer get the much needed reps, because you need to have an answer for who is the guy after Peyton Thorne, unless you want to hit the portal again in December.
See, then I'm going to turn this around on you.
Okay.
And I'm going to be the one asking the question. What do you think the criteria is that they're basing it off of to have Holden Geriner at the number 2 spot? What could they be looking at and seeing? Is it practice? Is it preparation? Is it film study? Because it's not the limited game time. So what do you, Zac Blackerby, think the criteria is for this staff having him second ahead of Hank Brown?
My guess is accuracy and decision-making are huge parts of it. And I think in practice, from an accuracy standpoint, I'm sure Holden's arm is extremely accurate. Now, what we've seen from Hank, I don't think is far behind, if it is behind at all, but I'm sure seniority plays a factor. I'm sure the fact of the matter is, like, Holden has operated as a backup quarterback in practice more. Hank has operated as a scout team quarterback for the entirety of last year until spring. And so I'm sure there's some kind of role that he's needing to grow into with that as well to help facilitate practice as a backup. I'm sure that's an element of this. But I'm confused by this, honestly. So that's my guess to answer your question. But in all honesty, I don't know, Darrell.
And if that's the case, and I agree with some of your points, the same thoughts came into my head. That's a dangerous, in my opinion, precedence and criteria. This isn't upwards football. Just because someone's been there a year longer doesn't mean they should get the nod. Or, I just think the preparation for the future is more important than feelings or seniority in the present.
Yes.
It's
you got to hurt from now, Darrell. It's 4 months from now, and the season's over. The portal's about to open. Peyton's done. He's out of eligibility. Who do you feel most comfortable with as a starting quarterback in 2025?
Right now, I would say Hank Brown.
I'm with you. I think most people are with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people are with you. So,
and you got to do everything you can to make that be more of a confidence level, right? That you got to know it's absolutely that it's like irrefutable. Oh, this is our guy next year, unless Walker White comes on strong in the spring and all that, and that could happen. But we're not talking about the spring. We're talking about when we go into December and the portal opens. Who's your dude right then?
Yeah.
And to be as confident about Hank Brown as we need to be, you need to get him more reps.
Yeah, you've got to have a good, strong, educated guess with the portal, or if you don't, you probably need to go to the portal and get a quarterback, which I don't think they want to do. But if you don't have a clear idea, you probably need to get one. So we'll see. But right now, I think Hank Brown is the second best quarterback on this team. Who's the second best running back on this team? It's an impossible question. And Darrell and I both have different answers. That's coming up next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Darrell, can you imagine wagering anywhere other than at our friends at FanDuel?
No, there's too many reasons with the first time credits and type of and all the different things that are the tools that are available at your disposal. No, I couldn't imagine. It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, this summer, look, they get it. They know that sports are slowing down over the summer, but they're about to heat up. They're about to heat up, Darrell, but it's still summer, and FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel's the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and the Locked On Podcast Network. Who is RB2? We all believe Jarquez Hunter is the lead back. He certainly earned that. And depending on how the season goes, he's going to end his career as one of the leading rushers in all of Auburn history, and he deserves it. Good for him. But the guys behind him, Darrell, there's so much buzz around both of them. Hugh Freeze was asked about the biggest difference with Jeremiah Cobb. What do they want to see more from him? Or like what's different from him in year two? And he quickly said his thighs, and they're both jacked. Jeremiah Cobb and Damari Alston, they are both absolutely jacked. But this Jeremiah Cobb is a guy that with all the videos and pictures that have come out that you're like, yeah, no, he looks the part to be RB2.
Yeah, there was flashes last year. I mean, obviously it doesn't take much to get me wound up to talk about Jeremiah Cobb. I have such a hard time with this question because of how much I love Damari Alston too and what he's done for this program. He's an ambassador, right? But I think at the end of the day, Cobb is is running back too.
Yeah.
And I think the physical attributes are there and they're only being talked about more. Hugh Freeze mentioned it by name, but of course he mentioned Damari Alston at SEC Media Days as the guy that speaks for the running backs. My prediction is Cobb. But my lock, since we were talking about FanDuel, my lock is when the depth chart comes out, it's going to say Jeremiah Cobb or Damari Alston at running back 2.
When I saw Damari Alston in person, he was doing some drills and all that when we walked out there at the start of practice. I was filled with guilt. Because I had been overlooking him all off season, saying that Jeremiah Cobb was going to hop him. And this guy, not to say Cobb and other guys haven't, but Damari Alston to me looks like a different player. Some of that may have been the number change. I love the number 0. I also love deuces, but I love the number 0. But Darrell, I mean, this guy, I mean, he has transformed his body, and it's not like he was out of shape to begin with, but this is a dude who looks, I mean, he looks leaner, but also looks like he's gained some weight. I mean, he is going to be a guy who is extremely difficult to tackle. Kind of reminds me of Jarquez Hunter a little bit, just as far as how stocky and thick they are, how, just their ability to punish tacklers. And I think Jarquez and Damari, I just think that's going to be a lot to handle when you're an opposing defense. And then you throw in Cobb as kind of that third guy to say, oh my gosh, this is a totally different back that we're going to have to adjust to. They're all good, which is a great situation for Auburn to be in. But Damari Alston, to me, like we talked about Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson, these guys, really working on their bodies. Damari Alston, to me, he looks like a different player.
Well, first of all, remember he was the back that carried Auburn for a little while until Jarquez Hunter got right.
Sure.
Not only and then also remember at a press conference after a practice last year, people kind of assumed that Batty, because he had transferred in from South Florida, was going to be the backup to Hunter. And Hugh Freeze made a very, very strong point and said, Damari Alston, when I got here, is better. Remember, I mean, he was better than I thought. He has really opened my eyes.
I remember that. Yeah.
He purposely mentioned him and how shocked he was. And then he backs that up and starts him in the first 3 games of the year. And before Alston gets hurt, he was doing just a great job carrying that running game until, like I said, Hunter in the middle of the season got going. I remember the way Alston ran. And I think, look, here's the deal. The beauty about this is that Alston could be a better player even than he was last year and improve. So could Cobb. And that just elevates the whole running back room. So it's not a matter of, one sliding back or receding. Mm-hmm. It's just that good. And all those guys just competing. And the carries will be there for all three. I think it's going to be and how they're all going to be used is going to be so special. I cannot wait to watch the running backs run. And I'm not just talking about the early games, like the Oklahoma game. You watch on how important that running game is going to be for Auburn to try to win that game.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great spot to be.
I'm excited. I'm as excited about this running back room as I have been since. Now, look, I know people are going to say, Dap, pump the brakes. I'm not saying it's the same. I'm saying that I am as excited about this running back room as I was the Ronnie Brown, Trey Smith, Cadillac Williams, Brandon Jacobs running back room.
Wow.
It's been that long since I've been as excited about a collection of running backs.
Wow. I mean, that's high praise for sure.
Didn't say they are them or they will match their production. But I'm saying anticipation. This old dude right here is excited like it's been a long time.
Yeah. I mean, Auburn's had really great running backs since then, but I don't think they've had a room this deep since then, which I think is what you're saying.
They've had they've had like a duo, like the Kerryon Johnson Petway was a really nice combination, and they got it rolling for a while.
But they never popped at the same time. They were both good.
Yeah.
And then Petway was against Vandy when he lost his hamstring.
And then when Dyer was a freshman, it was Ontario McCaleb, Dyer, and Mario Fannin. I mean, those were the three, and the production was good, but it wasn't like, and then I'm trying to think Trey Mason. Who was Mason? Oh,
Cap.
The Trey Mason, Cameron Artis-Payne was pretty good. That team I mentioned too, I think Ben Tate slid in one of those as well to make it the third back. Did he not? With Fannin and McCaleb? Maybe he did. They kind of overlapped, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe when they were like freshmen or something.
But nothing compares to that 2004 collection. It was you just picture poison, my friend, and it was incredible.
It's a similar situation. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a three-headed monster for sure.
And look how good Jason Campbell was that year as opposed to the year before. People seem to forget J-Cam struggled in 2003 a little bit.
Yeah.
When that running back room in 2004 popped and Taylor and Abamanu, and stop me if you've heard this before, he got receivers as weapons started to come along. What did Campbell do?
Yeah.
With a different offensive coordinator? From one year to the next? What if history repeats itself?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Yeah, it's this offense is different. It's set up to be different. They got to go do it on the field. They got to prep for the season, but the options are there. Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
You can follow me on X, Dap6410. Instagram, it's picking up. Darrell Dap, thanks for that. And then Wednesdays and Fridays with you. And a little bit of written work will be coming next week for Auburn Daily.
Ooh, yeah. Be sure to check out my written work at auburndaily.com as well. Please like the video. Please subscribe. You guys got us over 17,000 subscribers. That was our goal for the season to start, and we've got several weeks left. So thank you guys so much for that. Very, very cool. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.